Trekkies and Trekkers alike, you are all welcome here. Tuesday is the day, 7 p.m. is the time. Facebook is the place. It is Mission Log Live. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm John Champion. Each week on Mission Log Live, we gather around our communicators and holo imagers to talk Trek. You, our Star Trek pals, call in to chat with us, your Star Trek pals, about all kinds of things. Look, it might be Star Trek. Heck, it might even be an existential question about your place in the universe. And tonight would be a perfect time to drop that question on us. Our special guest this evening is Roger Nygard. Now, sure, he made Trekkies and Trekkies 2, but he also made the documentary film The Nature of Existence, and he's got The Truth About Marriage coming up. We'll meet Roger in just a moment.
Join us for that, won't you? It's easy. Just click the Zoom meeting link on your screen or use the one tap from your smartphone. You can dial us up at 669-900-6833, 669-900-6833. Then you enter the meeting code, and then we're meeting, and it's exciting. We sure do thank you for joining us live, whether it's on Facebook or at YouTube at Roddenberry Prod, or maybe you're picking up later on the audio podcast version of this show. However you're getting here, we are super grateful that you are. We do have one thing that we ask, wherever you're picking up this show, be it on iTunes or on YouTube or on Facebook, please hit like or, give it a 5-star rating or whatever. Please share this show with other people because, the more the merrier, as they say. And really, I'm looking forward to being much merrier, John.
What you haven't hit peak merriness?
No? The promise is the more the merrier. It's kind of like the higher the fewer, or the lower the more, or something. So yes, the more the merrier. That's what I personally am aiming for.
Got it. Well, as Ken said, please call in and chat with us and chat with our guest, Roger. I'm sure that most everybody in our audience has probably seen Trekkies and Trekkies 2. A lot to discuss there, as well as Roger's other films. So you can call us, you can hit that link to join the Zoom meeting, or you can drop us a note. Right now, I'm looking at the chat thread on Facebook, and it's time to say hello, as I like to do. There's Chris, there's Lou. Lou says, please do not let this crash my computer again. We will do our best, Lou. There's Cosmo, my buddy Cosmo. Looks like he's having a cocktail or 4 in the chat. You got Ryan, you got Narda all the way from Australia. Am I correct? I just want to make sure on that. We've got David. We've got Dave, 2 different people, David and Dave. You got Barbara, you got Paul, you got Donna. So many people saying hello. There's Scott. So welcome to the show, everybody. Glad you could join us. I'm sure that we're going to have a fun conversation as we do every week. And just a couple of bits of business to get to before we introduce Roger. We would like to let everybody know where to find us. Oh, no, not just online, but in real life too, IRL, as the kids say. Ken, if people are stalking me or you or the both of us, where can they do that?
Well, San Diego was going to be the place to do that in a couple of weeks because we are, of course, going to San Diego Comic-Con. I'm so excited. We've known for at least a month, I think, when our panels were going to be. Right. But the good people at Comic-Con have finally decided that other people might want to know too. So they've finally given the green light, and we are allowed to say where and when. I don't have where in front of us, though. I know that the Roddenberry Presents panel is going to be on Thursday, the 18th. That's day one, right? That's the very first day.
That is the very first day. Well, if you're not counting preview night,
which I'm not.
Okay,
very good. Be there for preview night?
Nope.
Yeah, well then it hasn't. Party doesn't start till we get there, John. That's what I'm saying. So anyway,
that's true.
Yeah, so the Roddenberry Presents panel is going to be at 1:30. We actually had a phone call earlier today about some exciting stuff that's going to be announced there. So you want to lock it in and rip the knob off. Then Thursday, later, after we've done the big fun Roddenberry panel, John and I are going to go to a little bar, a little restaurant, Havana 1920, 4 p.m. We are doing a mission log. Are we doing a mission log meetup or an RPN meetup, John?
Well, this is a mission log meetup. Yeah, okay. It's Mission Log Libre, as we're calling it. Yeah.
So don't even mention any of the other RPN shows to us because
no.
It'll make John angry, and you wouldn't like him when he's angry. And then there's a panel later in the week, John.
Yeah. So you have Larry Nemechek's famous podcasters panel. That'll be on Saturday, the 20th. It's not in the convention center. There is so much Comic-Con. How much Comic-Con? There's all of the Comic-Con all over San Diego. Will be at the library, and that will be followed by a meetup. We kind of did that impromptu last year. We had the panel, and then we all walked up to this great little pub restaurant place to hang out and keep talking Trek and the themes of Trek. And then Larry, for those of you who are fans of Mr. Nemechek, Dr. Trek himself, he will be interviewing Robert Butler. Robert Butler directed The Cage, 1965. And he will be there at Comic-Con, and Larry will be hosting that interview on Sunday. So check your schedules for the exact time and location. That will be in the convention center, but that would be a cool panel to catch. So that's our SDCC plans. And then Ken will be at STLV, not to be confused, that would be Star Trek Las Vegas.
Right. I was going to say, basically, we get back from San Diego, we unpack just long enough to do laundry, and then pack it all back in because, we're heading to Star Trek Las Vegas. Landing party on July 30th. That is preview night, by the way, and we will be there for that preview night. So if you're one of the people who does the big like captain type tickets, we'll actually be manning our table that Tuesday night. Although we'll bug out a bit early because landing party July 30th, the Masquerade Bar at the Rio. Oh, golly. And then there's a Roddenberry panel, which, Roddenberry is going to be part of, certainly. There's the Mission Log panel that John and I will be doing. And then there's an RPN panel as well, where we think every show from RPN is going to be represented. Got a fun idea that we're, we know the topic. Do you want to say the topic yet, or do you want to wait
Let's say it. Let's say it, because we're going to pose a poll question, or I think we're going to ask for some audience feedback on that one as well. So,
okay. So basically, the idea is we, as Star Trek fans, we probably have this idea that what we would really like to see is a Star Trek future. There are plenty of days where you turn on the news, you go outside, you just open your eyes and say, we're never going to get there. And here's the thing, though. We want to get there. So the question is, how? And so each show is actually going to have a little bit of stage time to pitch their idea. And this is like one of those kind of like Shark Tank, but with less sharks. Like, you get up and make your case. Like, if we're going to get to the 24th century, if we're going to get to that post-scarcity, we've all got, phasers that we never use because we've evolved past that, but we still have them. Don't test us. We've got transporters, we've got warp drives. If we're going to get there, how are we going to do it? And so Mission Log's going to make their pitch. Priority will make their pitch. Women at Warp will make their pitch. All the shows on the Roddenberry Podcast Network, well, with the exception of two, this show is not going to do a pitch because this show is like the live version of Mission Log. So that would be a bit silly. Allison Pitt from Daily Star Trek News is not going to make a pitch because she's actually going to be sort of a master of ceremonies for that event. But other shows on the network, including there may be a brand new show on the network by then, and we're going to throw them at the deep end and say, all right, smart guys, save the world. So that's a really exciting thing that we're happy about. And of course, the Mission Log panel is just me and John making stuff up.
Funny, that's my first question for our guest tonight is, all right, smart guy, save the world.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So before we get to that, very quickly, I want to remind you about the poll question that we pose every week. Last week, I had the pleasure of welcoming Elijah from Priority One. Ken, you were nowhere to be found. We just did a show without you.
I was absolutely nowhere. That's right.
Yeah.
I had not crossed Johnny Law, as some people do. But I wasn't here. But I know there was a panel anyway. I know there was a poll anyway. The poll question that was put out there, do you feel represented on Star Trek? 83% of people said yes. 17% of people said no. This is one of those things. I almost feel like this should be like an email thing because I really want to hear from the people who said no. I don't want to argue with them. I want to know. I want to know why they don't feel like they're represented. That's the kind of discussion that we have like in Masquerade and places like that. Maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
But that was last week's poll question, so we're done with it now.
All right. This week, in honor of our guest and some of the themes brought up in Trekkies and Trekkies 2, we had to ask, and please keep in mind that it is my great pleasure to every week, we talk to Earl, talk to Ken, talk to Rod sometimes. It is my great pleasure to always post poll questions that really just complicate and confuse people. And I love reading those comments. So this week we asked, are you a normal Star Trek fan? 64% of you said yes. No, 36% of you. There's a full 64% of you that I don't believe. So,
nice. I was going to say, when you call in tonight, 669-900-6833 is the phone number, by the way, 669-900-6833. If you're one of the people who said, no, you're not a normal Star Trek fan, please let us know that, because I want to know why. Like, do you feel like you're over the top? Do you feel like you're not Star Trek enough? Which, that feels silly, but I'm not going to tell you that you're silly. I'm going to say, tell me why you're not silly.
Well, without further ado, coming to us from an undisclosed location, it is my pleasure to welcome the man behind, as I said, some documentary films that our audience knows, Trekkies and Trekkies 2. Also the man behind The Nature of Existence, the film, not The Nature of Existence, and his upcoming film, The Truth About Marriage. Welcome to the show, Roger Nygard. How are you tonight?
Thanks. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Wow, an honor. Hey, don't get ahead of yourself, okay?
Yeah, I might change my mind by the time this is over.
Exactly. Well, look, I want to start really at the beginning, because Trekkies, the original Trekkies, came out in 97, correct?
We finished it in 97 and started doing film festivals, and then it was officially released by Paramount, I believe, in 99 is by the time it got its official release.
Got it. Okay. And then the follow-up, 2004. Wow. Okay. Oh, because Enterprise was still on the air when you were shooting some interviews, like with Connor and Dom and all those insane people. So I have to ask this, over the course of a good number of years, you were steeped in this world. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. You're not a Trekkie.
Well, I always go back whenever I get asked any question along those lines. We have to define terms, right?
Of course, sure.
What is a Trekkie? And by the definition that most people have, I guess I'm not. I would probably be more accurately described as a sci-fi fan in general. Grew up watching and loving science fiction with my dad. He introduced me to it. We watched all these movies in the 70s, like Mysterious Island and Time Tunnel, TV series Time Tunnel. And Star Trek was just another series that we loved to watch, which, obviously became the monster that it is today. At the time, we didn't know that. It was just in syndication that I'd watch it when I came home from school. And my friends and I would always quote lines to each other from the original series because they're so memorable and quotable. And it was just another show to me. I didn't embrace it as the golden chalice, although some of my friends did. And my brother is a huge, I would say he qualifies. So I know I guess every family has one, right? And
right.
My brother was that, and a good friend of mine is, and he could quote what lines. There's no way to beat him in a line quoting challenge. He would always win. And when Denise Crosby pitched me the idea to make a documentary about Star Trek fans, I immediately thought of my brother and my friend Jim, and thought, these guys would be really entertaining on camera.
So it really was a personal. It was a personal thing that was the appeal. I was just curious. Yeah, well, talk to me about that. What was the appeal? Because I guess if I'm not steeped in something, that I may find it hard to decide that, okay, this is the thing that I want to spend years of effort on making a film and doing a deep dive.
Well, you'll find, I think, in all of my films, all my documentaries, it's similarly the case that I'm always an outsider looking in, examining a topic or a subculture or a group or an idea or a concept that I'm not a part of. And I think it gives me a better perspective on what I'm examining by not being within it. I think I can see it better as someone who is learning from it and observing it from outside. If you can't see the forest for the trees type of thing. And so I went into it wondering, well, why is this TV series the biggest fan phenomenon in history? There's something going on. And so that was one of the undercurrents that we examined in the film. We asked that question. But the film Trekkies is really more, it's an examination of people. That's why you don't see any clips of the TV show. It's not about the TV show. That's what fostered this unparalleled obsessive fan phenomenon. And we wanted to know why. But what's really interesting are these people. They're really fascinating people. As you know, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, right? You know how fascinating you are personally as a person. And then when someone gets obsessive about something, obsession is interesting to watch, but also very funny. And my first job as a filmmaker is to entertain people. If you're not entertained, you're going to turn the channel. And one of the critiques that I got in making Trekkies 1 was, you didn't show enough normal Star Trek fans. And that's what prompted the question in Trekkies 2, because I thought, I don't know what normal is. What does that even mean? Who decides? Who gets to decide what's normal? And so I asked people in Trekkies 2 to define what a normal Star Trek fan is for me, please, so I'll better understand. And of course, no one can agree. And that's part of the fun of asking the question.
Well, you almost, I don't want to say hamstrung yourself, but I mean, you almost blew the lid off being able to ask that question, because Trekkies, if memory serves, was all across the States. Trekkies 2, you're literally going around the world. And I have a feeling that group that you were talking to was it Serbia? I have a feeling that the group that you were talking to in Serbia about what is a normal Star Trek fan versus the group in Sacramento, where I think there were 5 Star Trek bands that were right. 4 or 5.
But each one of them had a different series that they took as the basis, as the theme for their band.
Right.
Oh, dude, I want to know if there are actually any of them still there, because if there's a weekend where they're all playing, I want to go to Sacramento. I mean, John, I don't know. Well, anyway.
Well, I mean, we've got Warp 11 on our show. I mean, their music anyway. Yeah.
Right.
So I want to kick it with them sometime. Yeah.
But the whole like no kill eye, and then NKI the Next Generation, and then NKA Deep Space Nine. I mean, all that was kind of incredible. I mean, talk to me, I guess, a couple of things I'm wondering about. You made Trekkies, and it seems like Trekkies is fine. Why do you go back and do Trekkies 2? And then talk to me about the decision to go global.
I hope there's a day that comes when you'll be able to ask me, why did you make Trekkies 5?
Well, that was going to be a question.
Yeah.
You go to make that movie now. Well, I see. I want to get the answer.
How many? It's endless.
Asking in the chat room, they're already saying, when are we going to see Trekkies 3? I mean,
that's going to be a completely different movie if you do that now, because I'm thinking about people like we have a friend of the show named Mahogany, who her entry into Star Trek, if memory serves, or at least the one that really resonates with her, is Discovery. I mean, there's so much stuff happening on screen now that 2 years from now, I think if you did make Trekkies 3, or when you do make Trekkies 3, your answers are going to be wildly different. Your crowd is going to be wildly different. But let's not go there yet. Talk to me about Trekkies
2. About Trekkies 2? Why did we make Trekkies 2? Well, part of the reason was we got critiques, and we thought it would be interesting to follow up on the critiques people made. Separately, we also didn't go international, and we had a whole region, entire continents of people that we could talk to, examine, ask them why they were enamored with this TV show. And then there's also the third aspect was kind of the Michael Apted 7-Up, 14-Up, 21-Up idea, where you check back with people years later to see what happened to them. And when we discussed, should we do another one, these were enough to intrigue us, enough to go forward, particularly the idea of going international and finding out what other fans in other countries were like. I think that was the primary thing that got us excited.
I'm glad you mentioned 7-Up and everything that followed on, because, I mean, it did remind me of that when you went back to some of the people in the original film.
Some had changed quite a bit. Like, Gabriel was married after the first one. And then Barbara Adams, the Whitewater juror, it was really funny. Almost nothing had changed. She was still working at Sir Speedy Print Shop in Little Rock, Arkansas, but every single person in the print shop had changed, with different, including the owners. She was the one thing that was still there.
Wow. Well, there was something that came up for me in Trekkies 2. First of all, good on you for having people who were critical. Like, I noticed you had Robert Meyer Burnett in there saying, yeah, I think you basically had on some weirdos and you made it a little sensational. So good on you for having people in there who were challenging what you did in the first movie. But there was a moment that I surprised myself, because you posed this very interesting question of what is normal. And then that was sort of part of a conversation about Trekkies versus Trekkers and how Star Trek fans look at each other. And I was sitting there watching this thinking, wow, these are some really extreme Star Trek fans. Wow, these people are a little out of the ordinary. And then as soon as Trekkies started talking about each other that way, well, I'm a Trekker, not a Trekkie. A Trekkie is like this, a Trekker is like that. Then I got really defensive, thinking like, oh, no, don't you judge other Trekkies. Wait, I just did. I'm so sorry. You know?
Right. Who made you the boss? Who made them the boss? Who gets to decide what is or isn't crazy? Part of the way we structured Trekkies 1, if you look back at it, the first half of the film is filled with the more unusualness of people. And so we can kind of get that out of the way. Look how crazy or weird or bizarre they are. And then the second half, you start to get used to them and think, you know what, they're not so bad. And that was the arc we wanted to trace, so that by the end of the film, a viewer was going, there are worse things to be obsessed with than a TV show that espouses values like the Prime Directive and don't interfere with other cultures, and everyone's working together of different races and people who are handicapped or disabled. Everyone has an equal shot, men, women. A TV show with those values is not such a bad thing to be obsessed with. And so that was the arc that we subtly tried to trace by structuring the film the way we did.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I do want to kind of move this conversation into themes that I picked up in the nature of existence, because there are some similar tactics that you have there. But we have Keith standing by who wants to chat with us. Keith, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing well, John. How are you?
I'm very good. I like the shirt there, sort of a nod to Ken, I take it.
Yeah, let's have words, Ken, before we get into our actual conversation.
Well, here, I'll just step out.
Mac OS Ken, I don't drink coffee. So Mac OS Ken is my morning coffee, and which is great. For the last decade, I've been listening that long. And then, there you go. And then along comes Allison with Daily Star Trek News.
Yeah.
And she's like my morning Cinnabon. So now I've got coffee and Cinnabon, and I'm in heaven. And then the two of them take a vacation the same week, and I've got nothing all week long last week.
Yeah, I don't know how something like that might happen. I think every podcast should be daily, honestly. So you should never go without, is my feeling. But
I've had a time.
Yeah. What's on your mind tonight, sir?
Well, I'm just thinking about the nature of Trek fandom. And I remember being a kid, long before social media. And even before Star Wars came out and became the cultural phenomenon that it is today, where it's part of the zeitgeist. You say Star Wars, pretty much everybody knows Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and R2-D2. You say Star Trek, maybe they know that guy with the pointy ears and they've heard of the Enterprise, but they don't know the characters. They don't know what it's about. They don't know the difference between a galaxy far, far away a long, long time ago. I just reversed that. And, the future and the hope of mankind and humanity. It was always just, phasers, a guy with pointy ears, and transporters. And so there was a level of geekdom there that was just always associated with being a fan of Star Trek. And you always wanted to seem normal when you're watching Star Trek. But when you try to talk about it with people who weren't into it, you were just a complete full-on dork. And then I watched, Trekkies, And I'm like, and I love both of them. I thought they were both, masterworks, so good on you, Roger, for the work you did there.
Thank you.
But, when I look at some of these people, I'm like, there, but for the grace of God, go I, some of them took their fandom seriously. Like, okay, we're really having fun with this. But some of them, like one guy I won't mention because he says not nice things about other people in real life. I'm just like, yeah, you need some medication, buddy. And I just,
Here's what I don't understand, though. I had a discussion with a friend of mine. We went to a Comic-Con several years ago, and it was a smaller city. It was not a big Comic-Con, but I think he wore his Boba Fett hoodie, and I wore my TNG hoodie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to a bar afterwards, and he took off his Boba Fett hoodie before we went inside, and I kept my TNG hoodie on. And he was kind of like, why can't I do that? Why don't I get to do that? And I looked around, and there were 3 people wearing football jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
And I pointed at the smallest woman there, and I was like, what position do you think she plays for the Bills? And he's like, I don't think she plays for the Bills. I was like, exactly. I mean, why is it okay? Why is it okay for that, but not okay, for you? I think about people who can recite sports stats and who will go nuts about, when the Bruins were absolutely ruined because of some trade that happened in the 90s or something stupid like that. And I say stupid, and I shouldn't say stupid because that person thinks that's amazing. But then if I started saying half the stuff I think about Star Trek, they'd probably think I was a loon because, you know
what? You actually brought this same topic up back on my podcast, the Treksperts Roundtable back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only fundamental difference there with the people that are fans of any particular sport to that extreme is that in their mind, it's legitimate because it really happened. These are real people playing a real game, and it's, their city pride, for wherever they live versus something that's completely fictionalized and made up.
Isn't real game an oxymoron? A real game?
There you go. You're exactly right, Roger.
Perfect.
I actually thought about saying that TNG really happened and that there was a set and there were scripts and you could go there. Just as real as any game, I suppose.
It's the future of mankind. It did happen in the future.
Anything else on your mind tonight, sir?
Not a lot to say this week. Just wanted to say hi, and I'm glad you and Allison are both back. It was refreshing yesterday and today to have you both on my morning drive to my early morning Mac clients.
Well, we are actually both Star Trek podcasters, and there is a week coming up that I can almost guarantee there will be no content. Like, are we, John? You and I haven't even talked about what we're going to do that week.
No idea.
Brace yourself, or maybe go back. My catalog, I think, is up there for the past 10 years. So just do a blast from the past. Pretend like you're.
I love the fact. I love the fact that you're going to be traveling when the quarterly report comes out for Apple.
Don't even start with me. Thank you very much for calling in tonight, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, live wrong and perspire, guys.
Take care. So, Roger, I want to ask you. When you did these 2 films, and it was very, very interesting, you were able to follow up with some from Trekkies to Trekkies 2. But I'm curious, who are the ones who surprised you? Everybody has a unique story. Everybody, I feel like through careful selection. And was it you picking the people to go after? Did you do a casting call? How did you get these people to be in this film? But who are the ones who maybe challenged or surprised your notion of what you were getting into in a deep dive of Trekdom?
Well, in Trekkies 1, we just went to conventions and asked people questions. And then the ones who are really interesting kind of presented themselves. Sometimes right there, you thought, like when we went to Australia in Trekkies 2, this became a routine of ours, a part of our method. We go to a convention. Here's what it's like at a convention in Melbourne. And then we would pick somebody and go home with them and see what their home life was like. And it almost didn't matter who we picked. Anyone we went home with was interesting and surprising. Who they were was unpredictably interesting. And that, it never failed. Everybody's interesting. In Trekkies 1, like Gabriel was somebody that Denise met in line with signing autographs, and she brought Gabriel over, and we did an interview, a brief 7-minute interview, that's pretty brief for a documentary. And we cut, when I was editing the first version of the film, I cut a few lines in, and then I watched. I said, we got to find him again and go. It was obvious. We've got to know more about this person. So we tracked him down and went home with him. So that became our process, is to go home with people, get to know them, see what their life is like outside of a Star Trek convention. And your question is about who surprised me. It's always a surprise what you find when you go there. The second time we went back to Barbara Adams in Little Rock, Arkansas, she introduced us to her neighbor, who was a huge surprise, who had these drawings of aliens that she showed us that were real drawings of actual aliens. And we didn't see that coming.
Well, wait a minute. Hang on. Can we parse that for just a moment?
No, you cannot parse it. You heard what he said.
No. Wasn't I clear?
Yeah. You were so clear.
That's what she said. And we didn't, it wasn't like challenging her. It was just, there was a real alien that had sat for a portrait that somebody drew, as she had purchased a picture from someone at a convention.
Yeah.
That was an interesting moment in the documentary.
A surprise, right? We didn't see that coming. We just thought we'd go see what's new with Barbara Adams, and there's always a surprise.
Here's what I wonder, though, and it almost goes back to what I was saying to Keith a moment ago. By the way, other people should feel free to call in. 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833, or use the one tap from your smartphone. Or if you're on the Facebook page, just click the thing. That'll get you right through to us, because you have questions and Roger has answers. Sort of goes back to what I was saying to Keith a moment ago, like people who wear, T-shirts for their favorite sports team. Or I have a Police shirt that I bought at a concert 10 years ago, and I love that shirt. Nobody ever asked me questions about it. I've got a little tiny Star Trek Delta that I wear as an earring. And I can't tell you how many times on my trip, actually, including getting onto the airplane. I'm getting onto the airplane, and the guy whose job it is to bring me peanuts and drinks and save my life if the plane goes down is like, hey, Star Trek. That's great. And there's this little, I wonder if, I'm not saying everybody should wear their fandom on their sleeve, but I wonder if people did wear it out a tiny bit more, the same way that people wear crosses, or the same way that people wear sports jerseys or what have you, if we would find that there were maybe more of us out there than we realize.
There are many, obviously. It's from a psychological perspective, and maybe that's something we would get into. I would like to get into more deeply, is the psychology behind fandom in general, and Star Trek fandom in specific. Is why do people wear signifiers of what they like? And it's tribal. We're all part of tribes, and our tribes overlap. If you have an iPhone, you're part of the iPhone tribe. If you have a Mac, if you have a PC, you're part of the Microsoft tribe. And if you wear a Delta on your earring on your ear, you're signifying that you're part of the Star Trek tribe in general. And maybe if you're a Niner, GS9, you're signifying you're a part of a subset, a strata of that group, a subgroup of the group. But we're all tribal. It's innate in human nature. And we like to advertise, because then that's how we meet people of our tribe. And we have things in common automatically with them to talk about and to connect. We're social beings. We like to connect. We need to connect with other people. And it's one way to do it.
Roger Nygard is our guest. He of Trekkies and Trekkies 2 and other films, which I know John is dying to get into more. But first, John, we've got some other business that we want to do.
Yes. So right now, if you're joining us on Facebook and you're looking in the chat, you will see one of our friends typing away part of the conversation. His name is Scott Palm. Now, we launched a fundraiser for Scott a couple of months ago, and we're keeping that fundraiser up and active until we reach our goal. That fundraiser is for the Heroic curriculum. Now, that is a curriculum that Scott has developed with the Pop Culture Hero Coalition with two important goals. First of all, it's about teaching children with serious physical disabilities qualities like resilience, healthy identity, breaking barriers, and other crucial mental health and life skills. The other important approach for the heroic curriculum is about teaching and reaching the peers of those children with disabilities and getting messages about inclusion, ending marginalization, and being an ally to those other students. Now, October is Bullying Prevention Month. We reach our first goal, and remember, we are more than halfway there. Scott's program can start and run for a full 6 months. It is great work. It is important work. And here's the thing, it is not the easiest work to do because Scott has cerebral palsy. And this is why the Roddenberry Foundation is joining with you to help Scott help the world. Go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/missionlogpod, or you can go to twitter.com/missionlogpod. You will see a link to the fundraiser pinned at the top of each of those pages. Every dollar that you give will be matched by the Roddenberry Foundation. So you'll be contributing to something that truly embraces the values of Star Trek put into action. And remember that the Roddenberry Foundation doubles your donation. Facebook.com/missionlogpod. Look for that post, make a donation. Every dollar becomes $2, $5 becomes $10. Every bit helps. And listen, even if you can't donate, it is vitally important that you share the post. That's all you need to do. Hit share, make sure your friends are aware of it. We certainly appreciate it. Scott appreciates it. And it might even help make the world a better place. And I see you all in there in the chat. Say hi to Scott, and in his name, go over and click on that link and give a little bit of money, because Roddenberry Foundation will match it.
669-900-6833 is the phone number to call, 669-900-6833, or you can use the one tap from your smartphone, or if you're on the Facebook page, click there and do the stuff. And then you get to, not only do you get to talk to John and Roger and me, you get to talk to Earl. I mean, seriously, your cup runneth over.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question, Roger. You said that, so for Trekkies, Denise Crosby approached you. You also said that you tend to sort of be outside in a lot of the documentaries that you make. If you are sort of an outsider, and I assume that nobody came to you to do The Truth About Marriage, or I could be wrong, or The Nature of Existence, I could be wrong about that as well. How do you choose what you're going to do next? Because I mean, as John mentioned earlier, this is not like, oh, I'll do that for like a week. I mean, this is a serious commitment. If you're not going into something like, I'm rabid about, X, so I'm going to concentrate on that for a year or two, how do you choose the things that you're going to go into?
Well, you are correct. Nobody approached me about The Truth About Marriage or The Nature of Existence. And it was Denise's idea to do Trekkies, because I had worked with her in my first feature. I had cast her in a dramatic role or a comedic role and had stayed in touch, and she pitched me the idea years later. My second documentary between Trekkies 1 and 2 is called 6 Days in Roswell, which is about UFO fanatics. And the person I partnered with on that, it was his idea. And in each of these cases, the concept itself has to be engaging enough to hold my attention for years at a time. You're right. It took me 4 years to do The Nature of Existence. And The Truth About Marriage, it took me almost 8 years to complete. Trekkies 1 took, actually was very quick. It was only 9 months from start to finish. We did that very rapidly. Trekkies 2 took 18 months. And so they're all a little different. But in any case, it's still a large commitment. You're right. And so I become fascinated enough by a concept or an idea to plow forward. For example, The Nature of Existence. My core question was, why do we exist? That it's impossible. How do you make a documentary about existentialism? It can't be done. And that was part of the attraction, the challenge of it. And so I did, and I made something. I made a film about trying to answer, why are we here and what is our purpose? With The Truth About Marriage, my core question is, why is marriage so hard for human beings? If I was selling you a product and I came to you and said, hey, Ken, I've got this great product. You're going to love it. Everybody's getting it. You got to get one. And if you said, I want it too, then is it any good? Is there any guarantee? And I said, well, half of them fail and the other half, they keep working, but you got to work really hard to keep them going. You'd say, go back to the drawing board and fix your product before I'm going to buy it. But that's what marriage is like. Everyone wants it, but it's so flawed that half statistically fail. if you define failure as ending, in which I guess it is. And the other half, it's not easy. You got to put a lot of effort into it. It doesn't come natural. And why is that? So that's the core question I set out and have answered, I believe, in The Nature of Existence. And in Trekkies, they're not as much concept documentaries as a portrait of a subculture of people. And the question for Trekkies was, why are these people so enamored of this one particular thing? And then we broadened the scope in Trekkies too. And in the my second documentary, 6 Days in Roswell, the idea, it's about I followed this gentleman who was in Trekkies. He's the guy who goes to the Radio Shack, and then you see him driving down the street in a Captain Pike chair. I spawned him off basically into his own documentary as he went on a journey down to Roswell, New Mexico for the 50th anniversary of the crash of this alleged spaceship, with the goal of being abducted when he gets there, and trying to interview enough people to learn how to meet aliens and be abducted. So I followed him on a journey and to learn about aliens, and are they coming here, and why, and what do they want from us? So all of these things are questions that intrigued me enough to hold my attention long enough to get to a final cut.
Well, I tell you what, let's talk to a real life Trekkie right now. We've got one on the line. We have it's our friend Cosmo. Cosmo, how you doing tonight?
Good to see you. Welcome back in.
Thank you very much, sir.
I wasn't planning on calling in today, but excuse me. The chat about Star Trek fans judging other Star Trek fans in the movie, that got me thinking. I've got a very modest little Star Trek Twitter personality, and I've been very blessed to avoid and be ignorant to some of the negativity out there. And I sat back and watched the Star Wars fans eat each other alive with The Last Jedi, and I was kind of thinking to myself, man, the Star Trek community sure is great. And a couple weeks ago, I went down a dark rabbit hole with some William Shatner drama with some fans, and it got really ugly between fans of the fan who was fighting with Shatner, and then Shatner fans, and it was just Star Trek fans being really mad at other Star Trek fans. And I hadn't seen that kind of stuff before. So I know I don't need to tell this to the Mission Log audience, but just signal boost the positives, and we are a wonderful community. And I mean, Edic, and there's so many wonderful people out there. Let's just not focus on the negatives. And after that one afternoon, I just got kind of depressed, and I said, I'm out of this, and I'm staying out of it, and I'm focusing on the good stuff.
Well said. I mean, I'll tie that into, Roger, something you brought up, talking about wearing a symbol, that there's something about the tribalism, identifying what it is that you're into. And we try to make a point when we need to make that point on Mission Log. Star Trek's not a religion. Star Trek's not a worldview. It's none of those. It's a piece of fiction that has some very good ideas in it. And those ideas, the good ones, should be celebrated and discussed and adopted and absorbed. But we need to remember what it is that we're talking about. But there's still something about it that speaks to people that is so deeply personal, so that so that when people feel challenged, that it is in a sense challenging a part of their personality, a part of who they are. And I see these parallels between looking at people in Trekkies and then looking at people in Nature of Existence. I mean, in Trekkies, you're getting into something that is sort of surface and fun and light, yet people have dedicated their lives to it and really identify a big part of themselves as part of this thing. Nature of Existence, you're talking to people all over the world about God and or lack thereof, and life and meaning, and these huge things that again inform and are a part of how they see themselves and how they see the world. So I'm very curious whether it's with Trekkies or with the gurus that you've talked to, and deep religious believers and non-believers alike, you have somehow managed to turn on a camera, start talking, and actually have enlightening, pleasant conversations. And with people who I would see being as far on the opposite end of the spectrum from me as they could possibly be. And yet you turn in this civil and engaging piece of entertainment that we can all absorb. How in the world do you do that? I'm thinking recently in my life, about 5 minutes into a conversation that taps into deep personal beliefs and worldviews, I'm either the volume goes up, or the anger comes out, and those personal things can't be extracted from what should just be ideas to discuss. You're kind of miraculous that way. I'm always impressed.
Well, the secret, I'll tell you the secret. Here's the secret. When I go on a mission to interview people, I don't have to defend anything because I don't have a dog in the race. I don't have a God that I've chosen that's the right one in the nature of existence. In Star Trek, I don't have one of the series that's the best. I'm not there to promote or defend. I'm there to listen. That's all. I go and I ask people what they think with an open mind because I'm genuinely curious and I want to know why they believe or think something. And there's nothing that's more satisfying to another human being than when you can say to them, what do you think about this? And then genuinely listen, actively listen to what they have to say. And by doing so, you're recognizing them as a human being. And it creates a bond between you, the listener, and the person speaking, that you genuinely ask them, what do they think? And you really care and you want to know. And I'm not challenging them or telling them they're wrong, or that, well, what about this? What do you mean you believe in Hindu gods? How many are there? Well, how can you believe that? When, I don't go there. It's more about, tell me why you believe, or what is Hinduism about? Are there really many gods, or is there just one? Explain it to me. And sometimes my question itself is almost unanswerable. How can there be many gods and one God? Or what is, my questions are challenging, but people welcome, they like challenging questions, especially religious experts. They love nothing more than a catechism, than someone will come and challenge them with difficult questions. They've been waiting for their life to answer these questions, instead of people just talking on the surface. And by asking challenging questions and listening, you go below the surface and you bond with other human beings. And I've done this all over the world, whether it's Star Trek fans or Muslims or Jainists or people who believe that they've been abducted by aliens, and people who believe in marriage, people who believe in polyamory, people who think they'll stay single their whole life. Whatever it is, I'm just there to learn. And if you want, it's a good practice, try it sometime. Just ask someone what they think genuinely and listen actively. And you're going to make a deep connection with them and probably a lifelong friend.
So Cosmo, there you go. There's the answer. And Roger is so much better at that than I am. I'm going to try harder. But Cosmo, it sounds like it's about listening and genuine interest. And that is how we will make the world a better place. So, all right, Cosmo, we will see you soon. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
So have you had a topic yet where you're like, all right, well, this is just nuts?
Many, lots of them. Yeah, but it doesn't. The more nuts, the better.
All right.
True. Yeah.
669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833, or you can use the one tap from your smartphone, or you can, what's the other thing? Sorry, I was checking the screen to see who was up next. You can, if you're on the Facebook page, just click on all the stuff there.
All of it.
It'll walk you through. Yeah, don't click all the stuff there. Yeah, because Facebook's going to get some weird ideas about what kind of ads to, send you going forward. But
isn't that what happened in Chernobyl? Didn't they click too many buttons at once?
It's the same exact thing. Same thing. Yeah.
That's just horrifying. Anyway, call us. That's what I'm saying. Because we got like 10 more minutes and we'll talk. Scott has actually done that. Scott, good evening, sir.
Ken, nice to be with you guys again.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Hey, can I make a plea before I make my statement?
Oh, sure.
Can I get you guys to maybe consider coming to the Comic Cons around Knoxville, Tennessee area and Johnson City, Tennessee, where, I can come?
I would love that. Yeah.
That's actually not a difficult thing because I have family in Nashville. So, going an hour and a half that way, or I guess more like 3 hours, but going 3 hours that way to get there. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you get good catfish there?
Yes, you can. I will take you to the places, sir. I promise.
Let's do it. Let's do it. 3-man road trip right here. I would, like Ken, I'm from the South and I miss good barbecue, and it's been a long time since I've had good catfish.
Plus, we could go to the Sun Sphere.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know about that. I've got a heights thing, but we'll try.
Okay.
What's on your mind tonight, sir?
I guess just a contribution. We're talking about fandom and all that, and I like his idea about humans are tribal. I would probably add one more thing to that. Humans do a thing called imprinting as well. From a fan who's been a lifelong fan, ever since I first saw Star Trek as a little kid, the thing that I loved about what Gene did with this science fiction show is he gave us something to look up to. And take, for instance, a young kid who's impressionable, or a young person, man, woman, sitting in front of that TV, and they're watching a leader, let's say, such as Captain Kirk. And you see him doing the struggle like any human would. What's the right thing to do? What's the best thing to do? Let's try to save this planet, this people, solve this problem. And you see him trying to struggle to do the right thing. And that makes a great impression on you. And I've heard, Ken, you spoke of hearing testimonials from people that, I went into this field because I saw something in Star Trek. Patrick Stewart in an interview spoke and said that he spoke to a cop whose daily routine was to see a lot of the ugliness of life. I think he was in Las Vegas, and he saw a lot of the ugliness that went on. And when he had a really, really bad day, he put in an episode of Star Trek and sat down and watched that hope that the show brought. And it encouraged him to go another round, another day on that job. And I'm afraid, sadly, we've got a lack of the type of leaders like Picard and Kirk that a lot of young kids could look up to. But that's one of the things that draw me, and maybe you guys as well, to the shows, to look up to that bar, see that standard that Gene put out there and go, I'm going to try for that.
I'll be curious to see what happens with the show that they're developing for Nickelodeon, which I know sounds weird because, there are two ways that can go. That can be CBS being very smart and hooking them when they're young, right? It can also be sort of getting in early with that kind of wonderful message. That's, fingers crossed. That's my hope, because it would be great to be able to see that. Look, we have the Orville, so I'm fine. But it would be great to see that. It would be great to see that with the Delta, as opposed to just a union ship as well.
I agree totally with you, Ken. That's basically all I had. But just kind of from that perspective, as a fan, I know you got some of the fringes things that go on, but essentially, that's what Star Trek did for me.
That's really cool to hear. Hey, listen, save up next year. Come to Vegas anyway. We'll go to Knoxville. I promise we'll go to Knoxville.
All right. I'll try. Thank you guys for taking my call.
Take care, Scott. Hey, we've got how many minutes left, John? About 7
minutes.
Yeah. So time enough to get somebody else on. 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833. Or you can use the one tap from your smartphone, or use the link in Facebook. Want to remind you really quickly about the other shows on the Roddenberry Podcast Network. See, Keith called in earlier and he's like, well, I listen to you every day, and so you weren't there and I had nothing to listen to. Dude, there are so many shows on the Roddenberry Podcast Network. You could have just stacked them up, because we got Mission Log, which comes out every Thursday. Mission Log Live, of course, happens on Tuesday. It comes out Tuesday night or Wednesday. The Trek Files also comes out on Tuesday. Priority One, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, comes out on Friday. And of course, Daily Star Trek News, that's 5 days a week. 5 days last week, notwithstanding. So, podcast.roddenberry.com. Our goal, kind of like what they're doing with Star Trek, eventually we would like to have something for everybody. Right now, we have lots of stuff for lots of people. So, keep tuning in, keep checking it out. New stuff coming. What was that from? That was from Rabbit Hill, wasn't it? New folks coming. Oh my. Yes. New stuff coming to the Roddenberry Podcast Network. So keep an eye on that. Podcast.roddenberry.com.
Hey, Roger, in the kind of dwindling minutes here of the show, and it's interesting, you say that you went into these films not as a Trekkie. You didn't grow up as sort of, steeped in Star Trek fandom, but clearly you knew of the show, and there were people in your family who were certainly fans of the show, and you got to know these fans very well. I'm curious about a couple of things. One, you did go back and follow up on some stories. I'm curious if anybody keeps in touch with you still. You seem to have a real bond, whether it was in Trekkies or Nature of Existence, and I'm certainly curious to see when Truth About Marriage comes out. You seem to really form these interesting friendships and intellectual bonds with the people that you talk to. So I'm curious about that, and I'm also curious maybe about the takeaways from Star Trek. Something that Ken and I do week after week, looking at episodes of Star Trek, is trying to determine what it's all about. And what Scott just called in and told us about the inspiring aspects of the show. I'm curious if you get something like that out of Trek, or if that's what you see in fans, or do you see something else?
A lot of people stay in touch, and I stay in touch with a lot of people in all around the world that I've met making the Trekkies documentaries and the Nature of Existence, and all my films. I meet people and bond with them by wondering about their lives and learning about them and interacting. And I get a lot out of it by doing this, by meeting people. There's like Relja Trajkovic, one of the Serbians. Part of the reason I think I'm still close friends with him, and many of the people I'm still friends with, is because the type of person that's drawn to Star Trek is the type of person that is likable in general. They have, or at least to me, they have qualities that I find very likable. They're smart, they're fun, they're funny, they're knowledgeable, they like sci-fi, they whatever it is about that show, the type of person it draws is also a person that I'm drawn to, and obviously that people within fandom are drawn to. So similar people are drawn together and make lifelong bonds, and sometimes get married because they meet people with the similar values, similar core values. One of the things I learned in making the Truth About Marriage is that a key factor of success in a happy relationship is to make sure the person you marry has the same core values as you do. Otherwise, they're going to drive you crazy later. And people don't think about that. They overlook a lot of those things. But if you both vehemently disagree about something, a core value, whether or not to have children is a core value, how to spend money or save money, neatness or messiness. Many people get by and they overlook it and they do okay, but that makes it much harder when your core values are very different. But the core values of people that are drawn to Star Trek, I think they have that in common, and that's why they bond. And that's why I like to stay in touch with a lot of the people that I meet while making films in specific and in general when traveling.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people here are just chiming in. There's Paul saying friends for life are found at conventions, and Scott saying been there, and John Cooley here. So nice to hear what you're saying reflected in our listeners as well. I do realize we only have a couple of minutes here. Ken, I don't know if you have any last questions before we ask Roger where we can find him and his upcoming work.
Well, actually, I was just we started to talk about the going around the globe thing earlier, and unfortunately, I've got like 30 seconds now to ask about that. How did you find the people internationally? Because I mean, you were at the first, if memory serves, from watching the movie, you were at the first Serbian Star Trek convention. obviously you can't just go to a convention and say, hey, when's the first one? I mean, like, how did you
Larry
find
Nemecek.
Larry Nemecek,
Yeah.
really?
Nemecek.
Yeah.
I mean, it's people. They come to us sometimes, but you just ask around, and everybody knows. Oh, you got to meet this person.
Far out. Larry
Yeah.
never introduces me to anybody.
No.
Well,
No.
you know, maybe it's you.
Most certainly is.
I've suspected that for quite a while. Hey, so obviously you have past work, you have work coming up. If people want to find out about you, social media, website, all that stuff, where would the best places?
My name is RogerNygard.com is where you can find me, spelling my name Nygard. My current film is The Truth About Marriage.com. You can learn about that film. It's going to be screening coming up at the Breckenridge Film Festival, September 19th, and the Free Thought Film Festival in Pittsburgh, September 20th, and then the Twin Cities Film Festival in Minneapolis, October 18th. And all that information is at the thetruthAboutMarriage.com.
Excellent. Roger, can't thank you enough. This has been great. I feel like we just, scratched the surface on your terrific films. I do want to encourage everybody, go check out Trekkies and Trekkies 2. If for some weird reason you haven't seen them, also check out The Nature of Existence and The Truth About Marriage. And now is the time for me to remind you that Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, executive producer Rod Roddenberry. Technical production on Mission Log Live is by Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from the Roddenberry Podcast Network, including not just Mission Log, but also Women at Warp Priority 1, The Trek Files, and your daily Star Trek news. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Fun items over there, including early access videos to your weekly Mission Log. Thanks to everyone who joined us live or later, and we will talk to you next week.